with allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Under the Texas flag, I pledge allegiance to the Texas, one state, one indivisible. Good job.
Awesome, thank you.
This meeting is being live streamed at https://bit.ly/3SROLQR. Move to item number 4, adoption of the agenda. Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda? Motion made by Mr. Morales,
Second.
seconded by Ms. Ramos. All those in favor say aye. Any opposition? Motion carries 7-0. Item number 5, public participation. Ms. Pettis, do we have anyone that wishes to address the board? We move now to item number 6, communication from administration. Item 6A is our budget recap report check register for August 2022. This can be found on pages 3 through 9 of our packet. Dr. Pitts.
Thank you, Mr. Duval. I'm gonna pull your attention to the top of our check register. Some of the bigger expenditures. We had 3 school buses that we purchased. The total cost of the buses was $354,000. We have not been reimbursed for those buses yet. The reason for that is basically we have to destroy the buses before we get the reimbursement. Now, right now, we have a couple buses down, so we are strategically waiting to destroy those buses until we get our other buses back in operation. But 2/3 of that cost will be reimbursed for the buses once we decide to destroy the other buses. We actually have 3 years to do that. If we really were in need of buses, we could decide right now, this year, we're gonna keep the buses, we're gonna destroy them next year, and we could get reimbursed for them next year based on our bus situation. If you look at the second item, OKC, $75,000, that was the one where we received the check for the 313 agreement. And then with that money, we turned around and paid Mo Casey. So that was offset by revenues received. We received a check, and then in turn we paid Mo Casey, which will be basically our legal counsel through that 313 agreement. Again, that's the one where with solar panels, we will be saving a couple $1 million over the next 10 years. So that project again is still in the works, and probably we won't be able to begin to see any money from that for a couple of years from now. And again, as we move through the next step in the process, we'll be bringing more information.
Can you clarify that one?
Now, as I understand it, we approved an application. But we have approved nothing further than an application.
Yes, that's
So the project may or may not even come to fruition.
That's true.
I mean, I was under the impression that it wouldn't cost us a dime. We were just allowing them to go do it.
And they gave us a check for $75,000, and we paid the $75,000 with those revenues received. So we didn't pay anything out of it. Well, we paid directly because we were given a check.
And I'm assuming their application was approved.
I don't think that's known yet.
We're still waiting for the next step in the process.
They had till December, correct?
I believe so, but I can follow up and bring that. I can email something as far as where we are currently. If you look at go down to Luminex, that's our annual cost for security software that protects us against spam and malware and the whole suite of maladies that we're constantly under attack for. You see some instructional software, again, that is annual software. SHI government, we had a GPS system for our buses, a bunch of projectors and other technology supplies. Again, you see our legal expenditures, that was for 2 months. That's just based on when we're billed for that. Band instruments, again, are very costly. It can cost up to $15,000 just for a tuba. Again, you wouldn't, I guess you wouldn't think that they would be that pricey, but they are very pricey. So you see, we have a partial payment on our digital access card readers that we are planning to get for each of the campuses where they will swipe for security to get in and out of our campuses. That project is not complete yet. I'll take any other questions that you have on the rest of the check register.
Is that security, reader for teachers and other staff as well, or is it just for security?
No, that will be for all staff, with their, basically, they have a card that, they'll swipe to get through the door, and, access can be managed, of which facilities they have. So a teacher might have access to a certain building, and they might have access to that building at a certain time and on certain days, Monday through Friday from this time to this time. And there could be other access cards that have access to any single building at every single time of the day, depending on the level of proficiency for that individual.
And I know there was talk when we were going to our security about there being a lanyard of some sort, which you could press and then have security come.
Right, Ricardo is going to pilot it with one campus. It is pretty costly, but they're gonna pilot it with the county. And then Rivera and our district and SGA, we're gonna see how effective it is and efficient and all that. So we'll be letting you know that for sure, but one campus at Ricardo.
Dr. Pitts, what is actually lacking to complete that security, all security for a school? You said we're in the process of finishing up.
Dr. Trevino or Dr. Sandoval, do you have some information?
Are you talking about card access? You're
Yeah,
talking about
card access.
everything that we're trying to.
Just the card access.
Oh, just the card access.
Yeah, just the card access.
We will add that to our update that we'll send you.
Yeah, I think that's important that we get that completed as quickly, we can just. I'm sorry.
The vendor, the machine, right, that y'all were working on together. To have the card access, the badges and all
Right, the
that.
vestibule grant.
So that's what you're doing.
I think the only one, I believe, was is that have it's still blank, that we need to have a card reader put in. But they're a vestibule for the intercom piece and the buzz piece to get to the attendance office to let them in, right? The vestibule piece, those are in.
So not everyone on the campus is gonna have a card reader to go in. Cause I know right now, people are waiting outside. to
Right
get
now, it's
let
being
in,
more of a,
And it's
like,
been, sitting outside or standing out there.
right now, it's just strictly, on
You're
just
talking
the
about,
visual.
you're talking about staff.
Staff members
Staff
standing
members.
outside. But staff are literally having to wait out there.
On this check for the legal services, I understand that it's for every 2 months. When was our last check?
What was our last check date?
Yes.
That'll have to get to you. This check was given in August, but I'm not exactly sure what date in August, but I can get that.
That's, I think you're happy. I don't know if we were paying ahead or
Okay. Oh, you're wondering what months?
what months does that pay for?
Okay. I believe that was June and July, but I can double check.
Okay. I just want to make sure we didn't also have a July check.
Any other questions? If not, thank you, Dr. Fitz. We move now to item number 7, which is new business. Item 7A is by common consent, the board agrees to consider as one action item, the following, which can be found on pages 10 through 24 of our packet. Number 1, approval of monthly financial report for July 2022. approval of monthly financial report for August 2022, approval of monthly investment report for July 2022, approval of monthly investment report for August 2022, and approval of the T-Test appraisers 2022 to 2023 school year. Is there a motion to approve these by common consent? Motion made by Ms. Ramos, seconded by Ms. Salinas. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Any opposition? Motion carries 7-0. Item 7B, discussion and possible action regarding school bus safety week proclamation. Dr. Pitts and Mr. Betta will be presenting this. It can be found on page 25 to 26 of our packet.
Thank you, Mr. Blumenauer. Yes, yes. Okay, I'll just project for now. Every day, our students, the first person that many of our students see are the bus drivers. They are delivered safely to school every day. They are delivered safely every day after school, and our bus drivers step in as needed too. Yesterday, when we had unexpectedly the water shut off at Gillette, our bus drivers jumped in and were able to transport the students as the water was shut off. It's a difficult job. A lot of times our bus drivers, they again, they have to not only deliver the kids safely, but they also have to make sure that the kids are well behaved on the bus as well too. And a lot of our drivers, we have most of our drivers are 25-hour drivers. So they drive the morning routes and they drive the afternoon routes. But there are some routes in the middle of the day as well too, that for either if they are a half-day program or if they're with special education or one of those programs where we have the midday routes. Some of those drivers, they step in and drive extra routes, even though, again, their contract is only for 25 hours. So they drive extra for extracurricular games when we need it at night. That's not required in their contracts, but they step up and they drive. Yes, they're compensated when they do that, but again, that's not something that they're required to do. And again, I think the important thing is that we all work together. Every job has a piece to help our students reach their full potential and to be educated safely every day. And we all work together, and bus drivers are a big part of that. And we would like to recognize bus drivers by designating October 17th through 21st, 2022 as School Bus Driver Week.
All right, you've heard the recommendation from administration. Is there a motion to approve the proclamation?
So moved.
Motion made by Mr. Garcia. Seconded by Ms. Salinas. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0.
I will be happy to read it, Mr. Kufal.
Thank you.
Whereas the Kingsville Independent School District recognizes that the importance of protecting the safety of Kingsville's school children extends beyond the classroom walls in the school building. And whereas the board has great respect for the accomplishments of Kingsville's school bus drivers, mechanics, supervisors, and all school transportation personnel in providing the safest transportation possible for children to and from school and home. And whereas each day the Kingsville school bus drivers transport more than 1,800 students traveling over 100,000 miles annually. And whereas coordinating the countless routes over so many miles and supervising the dozens of students on each vehicle requires an outstanding effort put forth by numerous exemplary professionals who have devoted their careers to transporting our children safely. And whereas the board continues to recognize and to take great pleasure in commending the men and women who accept and meet the challenge of school transportation, now therefore be it resolved that the week of October 17th through 21, October 2022, be designated as Kingsville Independent School District School Bus Safety Week. And be it further resolved that this week be devoted to the recognition of everyone who contributes to the successful operation of our schools, of our state school buses. And be it finally resolved that this special week serve as a fitting time to urge all Kingsville drivers to become more aware of the school bus safety regulations And we encourage all citizens to be alert and drive carefully near school buses. In official recognition thereof, we hereby affix our signatures this 20th day of September 2022.
Thank you, Dr. Pitts. All right, we move now to item 7C, discussion and possible action regarding Texas Education Human Resources Day resolution. This is going to be presented by Dr. Holt and can be found on pages 27 to 28 of our packet.
Yes, Board President, Superintendent Pettis, board members. We come tonight with the Texas Education Human Resources Day resolution. Governor Greg Abbott has proclaimed October 8th, 2022 as the Texas Education Human Resources Day, a day set aside to recognize and honor the important contributions made by school staff who work in human resources. Human resources staff work hard each day to make sure our schools are staffed with high quality employees and that those employees have a good work environment. And the administration recommends tonight that the Board of Trustees approve the resolution as read proclaiming October 8th, 2022 as Human Resources Day throughout the district.
All right, you've heard the recommendation from the administration. Is there a motion to approve the resolution?
So moved.
Motion made by Ms. Ronalds. Seconded by Ms. Salinas. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carries 7-0. Dr. Holt, would you like to read the?
Whereas the Human Resources Division is instrumental in recruiting, selecting, resourcing, and retaining quality staff in support of providing an excellent education for all students. And whereas Human Resources plays a key role in fostering satisfaction and loyalty among employees by allowing all professional growth and development and keeping employees informed about policies, working conditions, compensation, and benefits. And whereas Human Resources monitors and manages current and future workforce trends, organizational culture, legal and legislative trends, and ethical and social responsibility. And whereas Human Resources is an important part of a district's leadership and is vital to the overall productivity and efficiency of the district's workforce. And whereas Human Resources is a value and respected department that sustains the district's most important asset, its people. Therefore, the Board of Trustees of Kingsville Independent School District does hereby resolve that October 8th, 2022 will be observed as the Texas Education Human Resources Day throughout the district. The board also encourages students, staff, and parents to express their appreciation to our human resources team members for their dedication and commitment to Kingsville ISD employees and students. In official recognition thereof, we hereby affix our signature this 20th day of September 2022.
All right, thank you, Dr. Holt. All right, we move now to item 7D, which is discussion and possible action regarding the first reading of localized policy CH local purchasing and acquisition. We found on page 29 to 31 of our packet. Dr. Stoneball.
Thank you, Mr. Kufal, Board of Trustees, Dr. Pettis. I'm bringing before you, local policy CH local, which includes policy, provisions regarding single budgeted purchases of goods or services that cost $25,000 or more, regardless of whether the goods or services are competitively purchased. It requires that before transaction takes place, that they be taken to the board for approval. Currently, that limit is set at 25,000. The current revision is being asked to be raised to 50,000. In addition to that, policy stated the superintendent shall not be required to obtain board approval for purchase made through a cooperative purchasing program or a state purchasing program that satisfies the district obligation for competitive purchasing is being recommended for deletion. So we're adding an increase of 25,000, but we're also removing that requirement that doesn't expect the superintendent to bring it to the board for approval when we do participate part of the co-op or state purchasing. So I'll open up for any kind of discussion at this time.
All right, this was actually brought and discussed a couple of months ago. You've heard the recommendation that the amendment be, that the policy be amended as presented. Is there a motion to that effect? Motion made by Mr. Chapa,
I'll second motion.
seconded by Mr. Glusing. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Any opposition? Motion carries 7-0. Item 7E is the discussion and possible action regarding to the first reading of localized policy update 119. This is CPC local, office management, records management, DMA local, professional development, required staff development, EHAA local, basic instructional program, required instruction, all levels, EHB local, special education, identification, evaluation, and eligibility, EHBB local, special programs, gifted and talented students, EIF local, academic achievement, graduation, FFBA local, crisis intervention, trauma, informed care, FFH local, student welfare, freedom from discrimination, harassment, and retaliation. This can be found on page 32 to 117 of our packet, as discussed in our last workshop. Dr. Sandoval.
Thank you, Mr. Kupal. Background and update 119. This is our first reading in regards to 119. We did have a workshop a couple of weeks ago. We discussed it. But I want to make sure for the purpose of the first reading that we go over these specific updates. We're looking at 9 updates or deletions as part of this update 119. And this is part of the legislative 87th regular legislative session. And in addition to the first, second, and third call sessions that were called this past year. So the first policy we're going to review is CPC local. Recent updates by the Texas State Library and Archives Commission to Bulletin B, electronic records, standards, and procedures prompted recommended revisions to its local policy on record management. The new rules add local policy requirements for district management of electronic records. To meet these requirements, new policy provisions delete to the records management officer the responsibility to, or delegate to the records management officer the responsibility to develop procedures for the management of electronic records that comply with the district record control schedule and meet minimum components required by law. DMA local, these recommended revisions are based off SB 1267. That requires the board to annually review the State Board of Educator Certification, SBEC, clearinghouse regarding best practices and industry recommendations for professional development, and adopt a professional development policy based on the training recommendations in the clearinghouse. EHAA local, these revisions to local policy are recommended based on SB 9, which imposes several requirements for instruction on the prevention of child abuse, family violence, daily violence, and sex trafficking, including a board policy adopting curriculum materials. The policy follows the steps required by law, including board adoption of a resolution to convene the School Health Advisory Council, which is the SHAC, to hold meetings and make recommendations to the board at a public meeting, as well as board confirmation that these recommendations meet their requirements in law before taking action by a record vote. Fourth policy, EHB local. This policy requires the district to provide regular training opportunities for teachers of students with dyslexia. It's recommended to meet TA policy requirements for the ongoing TA special education cyclical monitoring reviews. EHBAA local. This policy requires the district to ensure that students who is transitioning from early childhood intervention has an individualized education program, an IEP, developed and implemented by the child's 3rd birthday. It being recommended to meet TA policy requirements for the ongoing TA special education cyclical monitoring reviews. EHBB local. This is being recommended for removal due to statutory requirements for a district to annually certify to the Commissioner of Education that the district's gifted and talented program is consistent with the Texas State Plan for the Education of Gifted Talented Students. EIF local, the revised administrative code rules require board policy to address the methods by which a student can confirm completion and submission of a financial aid application to meet graduation requirements. The recommended text aligns with TA guidance and addresses methods for both the pre-application for federal financial aid and the text application for state financial aid. And FFBA local, This is according to SB 1267, requires training in trauma-informed care to be provided in accordance with the board's professional development policy. Therefore, training is referenced to be added to the district professional development plan. And the last policy that we're considering today for approval on the first reading is FFH local. To meet new board policy requirements from SB 9, which is the second call session. The TASB recommends text as noted to parents, which requires the district upon receipt of a report of daily violence to immediately notify the parent of the student identified as the alleged victim or perpetrator. District policy must also include reporting procedures and guidelines for students who are victims of daily violence and include a clear statement that daily violence is not tolerated at school. No changes to the district's policy are recommended regarding these elements based on the district's existing policy provisions, which include reporting procedures and the statement of non-disclosure or discrimination that specifically prohibits dating violence. And those are the 9 policies we're looking at to add or revise. I'll take any questions at this time.
I just want to make a question and a statement. Page 99, BHAA has to do a little bit with SHAC. And I'm trying to find the other SHAC policies online, but I guess you guys have a new board policy on the website, and I don't know if it's just my Android phone, but you can't look up anything. So I guess my question is, I know that there's a separate SHAC policy, if I'm correct. So my question here is, it states for instructional programs required. And it states number 2, the SHAC shall hold at least 2 public meetings in the curriculum materials before adopting recommendations to present to the board. If I can remember correctly, isn't it like a minimum of 3 or 4 meetings that need to be had per year for SHAC? But this is just 2 meetings just for the curriculum. Okay.
My understanding is how was it just for the curriculum, but this policy until it's approved will not be online. So any policy that we currently have should be posted online and be visible. And so I'd have to make reference to verify whether it's actually the 2 or the 3 that you're referencing in regards to policy or required meetings.
So SHAC has more meetings per year. It's just at least 2 of those meetings.
Would have to be correct.
I just want to make sure, because I think there's another SHAC policy. I just can't bring anything up on that website. I don't know if it's my phone or what.
Vice President Ramos, recently TASB updated their entire board policy website for all districts across the state. So they're not working on a lot of phones. You'll have to use a regular desktop browser.
But then you could do like a credit on there. That's ridiculous. No one uses computers.
They're like, hey, let me go on my computer when I have my phone.
My phone, I can't see them. And it is different, but they're there. You have to work at it.
It is,
To get,
yes.
to get,
We did call them and because we're having trouble and they said they are working on updates for a lot of the phones to make sure it's going to be phone friendly for users as well.
SHAC does also have a separate bylaws that at one time was online, and I think it's in the process of getting back online somehow. But
We do have our first meeting tomorrow for Dr. Holt. This is actually.
Is this the required meeting?
It's one of the 4 required.
Is it posted online?
I think it should be already posted. It should have been posted for a while.
I haven't seen it. I've been on the website today and on social media. I haven't seen an announcement for a meeting, because that's one thing that I particularly like to know what's going on.
Can you check on that? I know that when we presented in April, I think it was April, about the report, I thought the calendar was presented at that point, but.
It has to show like, was it like a public board meeting almost, this meeting has to be.
For follow up, I think it wasn't, then we need to, but I know we've been cleaning up the website.
Yeah. Well, maybe my phone's not properly working today, it's just me having that, but, so it's tomorrow, and it's open to the public, correct?
And is it here in this building or
It's at the
high school?
Okay.
all right, any other questions about any of the specific policies? If not, do I hear a motion that the updated, the update 119 is presented by TASB, that the changes be approved as presented for the first reading?
So moved.
Motion made by Ms. Ramos. Is there a second? Second. Seconded by Mr. Chapa, Mr. Morales. All right, any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Any opposition? Motion carries 7-0. Item 7F, discussion and possible action regarding resolution for extracurricular status of 4-H organization in Cleveland, Kennedy County adjunct faculty agreement. This can be found on page 118 to 123 of our packet. Dr. Sandoval.
Thank you, Mr. Kufal. The State Board of Education allows public schools to designate specific entities or adjunct professors to be considered part of the KISD school district when our students are participating in outside events, particularly our FFA 4-H activities that they participate in. So we are bringing this resolution to the board to get permission to identify 2 adjunct professors that are part of the Texas A&M University system. So that when students are participating with them in a specific event, our kids are still getting attendance credit as if they were at our campus at HM King or Timbuk. So we want to bring this to you, get the authorization to do so. So our kids are getting the attendance credit and our district is getting paid the credit as well in terms of the finances. I'll take any question at this time.
Did we do this extension last year?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, you've heard the presentation and recommendation by administration. Is there a move to approve the agreement?
So moved.
Made by, was it Ms. Ramos or Ms. Salinas? Okay. Motion made by Ms. Ramos, seconded by Ms. Salinas. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposition? Motion carries 7-0. Item 7G, discussion and possible action regarding health benefits consultant. This can be found on page 124 of our packet. Dr. Pitts.
Thank you, Mr. Kufal. Our health benefits consultant helps us with many things. The prime being making sure that we review our current health insurance and ancillary products to make sure that they are operating optimally for our staff. Also, though, reviewing RFPs when we submit those to ensure that we are selecting the best product for our employees. Currently, Phil Esquivel Jr. and Associates is our health benefits consultant. He has been our consultant for the last 2 years, and I can say that the really just in the last couple of months, the amount of time that he has spent with us to review not only the health insurance proposals, but now the section 125 that we're going to bring right after this item he's really spent a lot of time and really helped us review those proposals, as well as monthly looking at our claims to make sure that there's no problems as well too. His current contract ends September 30th of this month. We are recommending that his contract be extended for an additional year. We have talked with Phil Esquivel as far as fees. He has recommended that his fees stay the same this year, which would be $36,000 for the year, $3,000 per month. I'll take any questions you might have.
Dr. Pitts, so he's still on board with us until the end of this month, is that correct?
Currently, on his current contract, he is, right? It would expire September the 30th unless renewed by the board.
I just would like, I know he's doing a lot more for us.
Okay.
And it has, I wish he was here, he might be caught up somewhere, but I just would like to see if maybe we can. It's only right that we maybe offer him a little bit more for the work that he's doing. Okay, I'm not talking about a lot more, but just something for his time and his efforts and his expertise in this. So I don't know if that's something that we can do. For the board and vote on that.
Well, I've had a discussion with Bill Esquivel on this and he recommended that his fee stay the same.
Thank you, Dr.
We can look at that, this year for next year,
Okay.
and that way we can have a 3-year trend to see how much. Cause I know we have saved a lot of money.
Yeah, we have. We've saved a lot of money with it, so.
For the next board meeting, is it we can table it and do that? I think it's gonna be.
How does that work legal if his contract ends September I guess you could approve it with this and then if you wanted to amend it with a different amount, would that be the way to do it?
And that's what I was gonna recommend. If you're comfortable with him, you want to just keep him on board, approve it. If you want to bring back his fee for reconsideration, you could always do that, if he also agrees to this.
This is what, the third year?
This would be the start of the third year.
You know, if he's agreed to 36,000, I think that's a good, 3-year kind of track record, and then if we enter into the contract again next year, we can negotiate but if we've got an agreement for 36,000, then I'm comfortable with that. All right, board, you've heard the recommendations. There a motion to approve the extending the contract for a year? All right, motion made by Mr. Garcia, seconded by Mr. Morales.
Yep.
Any further discussion?
For the record, it was Lucy.
Lucy, I'm sorry. All right, if there's no further discussion, all those in favor say aye. Any opposition?
No.
Motion carries 6-1. Item 7H, discussion and possible action regarding section 125 plan administration, RFP plan administrator, RFP number 22/23-001. This could be found on page 125 and 126 of our packet. Dr. Pitts.
Can I just have a minute of the board's time? The resolution for the extracurricular status of the 4-H organization wasn't read. Do I need to read that at this time?
Probably.
You're not required to read it as long as you have a copy of it, unless you want to read it into the record, then you're welcome to.
Would you explain that, Mr. Baker?
I will explain that to Mr. Knight.
The ones that we have that are
Looks.
that are for different departments and honorary, I think it's good that we do, but this, I don't think it's necessary to read this into the record.
Some people like myself.
Okay, so let me address the board agenda item of section 125 plan administrator. So let's talk about the start of this process. When we took to the board an RFP for both health insurance and for section 125 plan administrator. Because of time sensitivity, we reviewed with our health benefits consultant the health benefits first, and we brought that to a board meeting last month. Now we are bringing this one, part of the same RFP. In this RFP, there were only 2 proposals that were received for section 125. And let me talk just a little bit about what that vendor would be doing. They would be making sure that we are in compliance with all rules and regulations for IRS with all our ancillary products. So everything from hospital indemnity to vision to basically life insurance, all of those to make sure we are in compliance. And then part 2 is we put in our RFP that they would provide an online enrollment system. Our current our current enrollment system is with Salazar, and they did not submit a proposal for this next year. So, which means we do not have our own enrollment system. Most school districts don't purchase and manage their own enrollment system because of the technology that's required to update it. Most of them rent the system for a year. And so we need an enrollment system to enroll our employees. We also need assistance with enrolling the employees on the date of the enrollment. And then finally, we need a liaison that provides customer support for all of those ancillary products. For instance, if there's a problem with the feeds, or if there is a problem with somebody not getting the benefits that they that are under their plan. So this individual or this firm does all of that. We received 2 proposals for this. One of them was incomplete. The Aflac proposal was incomplete. The reason why it was incomplete was this. Number one, they didn't put anything in there about the online enrollment system, which is again something that we have to have, and that we specifically stated in the RFP. And second is they didn't provide a list of services that they would provide under the Section 125 plan administrator. So we spoke with our attorney because again, we only received 2 proposals, and our goal is to get the best value for the district. So our attorney said, regardless of whether whether the second proposal was incomplete or not, again, we have a clause in our RFP that says that the district reserves the right to select and reject all proposals. So that's kind of a disclaimer in there. So with the blessing of our legal team, we went and addressed the second proposal vendor, which was Aflac, and we asked the questions of the information that was not submitted in the proposal. For instance, we asked them to provide us price of an online enrollment system. We asked us to provide price for enrollers, for would they be willing to provide the services that we need. And then we went forward and then we scored accordingly on the rubric. And again, the reason why we did that is to make sure that we just weren't disqualifying a vendor because they did not provide information in the RFP if they were going to provide the best value for the district. Because ultimately, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get the best value for the district. So again, that's what we move forward with the blessing of our legal counsel. So let's go through the rubric. We're going to put it up there. It would be on your.
Necessarily.
Dr. Pitt,
Yes.
unless it's necessary.
Is anybody interested in going through the rubric necessarily?
Okay, if the board does not wish me to go through the rubric, that's fine. If they do, I'm happy to oblige.
For my personal purpose, as I understand it, section 125, the ancillaries are voluntary. You choose to take it or not, or.
That's correct.
Okay,
That's correct.
and you get, many of them, you get a pre-tax benefit, and it's not something that's a part of our standard insurance policy, but we make it available for any employee that needs the benefit cost portion of it, but it's completely voluntary.
That is correct.
And just for the record, Mr. Ludicky provided the service for us for many years, many years, and then we've changed and I'm glad to see him back.
Dr. Pitts, is our health consultant, Mr. Esquivel, is he involved in this process?
Yes, we met with him several times on this as well too, and he, again, he advised us to choose the Ludicky agency based on the rubric requirements.
He advised us to go ahead and go with Ludicky, is that what you said?
That is correct.
All right, you've heard the recommendation from administration to approve the section 125 plan administrator. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Motion made by Ms. Ramos,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Morales. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Item 7I, discussion and possible action regarding 2022 retention stipend. This can be found on page 127 of our packet. Dr. Pitts.
Thank you, Mr. Kufal. We provided a $500 retention stipend last year for all employees out of our SU3 grant. We are recommending the same this year. as far as next year is concerned, we will have to take a hard look at our finances. We have several things in our future that are gonna require us to take a really good look at all of our expenditures. One of them is the ESSER cliff. And right now, ESSER 1 has expired, that's done. ESSER 2 will be done at the end of this year, and we will have used most of our ESSER 3 funds by the end of this year. We will have a little bit of our ESSER 3 moving into the following year, into 2023, 2024, but we'll have to make some cuts next year as well too, because we won't have nearly the amount of resources that we currently have through ESSER funds. And
Let me make sure that everybody's clear. When we say cuts, we don't mean cut employees. Okay, let's make sure that that's clear. When we say cuts, we mean cut some of the fat and some of the other programs, just like we've been doing every year.
with the ESSER funds, it allowed us to do things that we haven't done in a while, such as with technology, go to a 1-to-1 ratio with devices to students. So some of these are one-time occurrences, but for instance, even with that, we probably have to replace 10% of our devices every year, either to them being obsolete or to them being damaged. So the other thing is we are having our big facility assessment that's coming up in the fall, and we should by January have the results of that. And again, that's going to give us the not only what needs to be done, but how much it will cost and how critical each of those infrastructure costs are. We already know about our roofing, that we are way behind on our warranties for roofing. There's a lot that needs to be done there, but also we're going to take a look at HVAC, take a look at parking lots, take a look at inside building infrastructure. So there's a lot that's going to bring to the table. So basically what I'm saying is, even though we know we can afford it this year because of the increased funding for ESSER, that we don't know if we're going to be able to fund this at this amount indefinitely. And I just want to make that clear that again, we're okay for this year, but we will have to revisit with conversations in the spring with where we are on our budget and what we can afford moving forward into 2023, 2024.
I have a question, and I know that this is a one-time thing. But is it possible to up it to at least 1,000? It's a one-time stipend. I mean, this year has been a hard year for every district to fill positions. And I think the individuals that are employed deserve a little bit more.
Well, I would say that the cost of this right now is 250,000. I would say if we upped it to 1,000, it'd be another 250,000. And I would, until we see the results of the facility assessment, I would recommend maybe taking a look at where we are in the spring as far as our budget is concerned.
Well, but that'll be a little too late. I think it's either right now or nothing. I mean, because, the facilities, you can pay it out of the fund balance. We have a healthy fund balance. Right?
We do have a healthy fund balance. However, we are going to have millions of dollars of infrastructure costs that are coming up.
When's the next one? Because this is just part one. There's another stipend usually.
Well, last year they got it in July.
We did November and then we did.
We did August.
We did.
And the August was just for returning teachers, but again, I wouldn't even entertain conversations like that until we see what our infrastructure costs are going to be. It's wise to make sure we have all the information.
Well, that's why I think we should recommend that we up it now and then we cross that bridge later. Because you're not gonna do it. We're not.
I'd be more apt to, like, if they actually signed a contract for next year to get $1,000 to come back. I think that's one of the things that I've heard here in this boardroom many times, is that we give them $500 for around Christmas time, it's the Christmas bonus. And then we give them one right before they renew their contracts, and some don't even come back. I mean, do we get that $500 back since they bounced on us a couple of months in the school or during the summer?
I think that's why we did it in August, make sure they were back.
Well, I know the district I come from, if you leave after you receive that stuff and you do pay it back.
Yes, you do.
So it just depends whatever, it just depends whatever strings the board attaches to the money. So if you create a condition to the money being awarded as a retention, that if they leave within a period of time after it's been awarded, and that's approved by the board as a condition of the retention stipend, you could collect it back.
I just feel like we're giving the stipends out at the wrong time. I think we should do one and right before summertime. And then one, like a couple months into school. And people returning, here's, you got two months or so until you need to start shopping for Christmas and then get that one in. That's your actual retention because you signed a contract, you came back, you worked two months or so. Here's some money and, do what you need with it, buy some sort of a Christmas present coming up. I feel we're putting the money that we're giving them at the wrong time.
Well, this is to be paid in November.
Right.
Right. But I think we need to do that. And just, for everybody, every employee that is here in the district right now, let's go everything.
My fear though is because this is ESSER money. If we have to go from 500 to 0. Better than going from 1,000 to 0.
But I think right now that we do have the money and it's ESSER money and we know we're not gonna have it in another year. And if we have the money, why not do it now?
Well, so let me add one more piece of the puzzle, which is, we gave the largest 2 salary increases in the last 2 years, and anything that we do now basically decreases the district's ability to have bigger salary increases in the future. It's all one pot, even though it's ESSER. We have basically a certain amount of revenue that we get from the district and a certain amount of expenditures in the district. And the district's goal is to balance the needs, and there's no way we can pay for everything that we want. So the question is, what's most important? Is it most important to give bigger salaries? Is it most important to give a bigger stipend at Christmas? Is it most important to buy the instructional resources that we need for the students? And it's a balancing act all across the board. So it's not that if we don't use this money, it's not that we're going to lose it. There's an opportunity cost for everything that we buy. Whenever you buy something, that means you're not going to be able to afford something else. So my recommendation right now is that we know we can afford this and we wait until the spring to see what our other costs are going to be, because ultimately we have to balance it all together. And then in the spring, we're going to be taking salary increases to the board, and the less money that we have for those salary increases hampers us to do that.
My problem is every year that I have been here, they've said, this is the last year we're gonna give disability. This is the last year we're gonna give money, and we'll do it the next year, and that's gonna be the last year. I don't know what's gonna be next year. I also see the fact that I'm listening and I'm being told that we have some very, very huge expenses coming up. That is a matter of keeping the doors open in some buildings. I think that the money should be saved to find out what those expenses are gonna be, and then we can go and give raises if need be. But this time of the year is not the time to do it.
I think when we talked about, because like what he's talking about, a pot of money, or this is how much funds we have. If we give something in November, I think that helps our employees for the holidays, and it's a retention cycle. But then we look again in late January, early February, hoping that we have the facilities study, because every day there's something, whether it's air conditioners, roofs that are leaking, things like that we're having to fix. But also all these safety things, we're upgrading, we're paying more salaries for the safety officers. We're having to build the vestibules, we're having to get the new software for the hard access readers. We're having to build the fence around the high school. All these things are expensive, and I'm hoping that the state will reimburse us for some of these things. And if we know more at that point, which is probably about February, we'll find out how much better we are at that point to be able to give either a spring or a summer or whatever date that we feel is best, you know, another retention stipend. And then be looking at something, how can we, or a raise for the next school year. We'll be, I guess, we'll be better informed, to make that decision. Like in February, I'm thinking, because we'll have more information on facilities and we'll have more information about any safety reimbursements that we're gonna hopefully get.
I think we approved the second retention stipend last year.
Why did we bring it back?
Yes, I can get back on to you. I think it was probably around September, October. So.
For the spring one or for this, for the Christmas bonus?
Well, it's
I
not
better
just a
check on that.
bonus, It's a step retention stipend, you can't say it's Christmas.
That's correct. This ladies, I will put that in the email. When we took it.
Stipends on, I almost certainly brought it out and back for the August, and probably brought it out in the spring.
I can put that in the email that we send out.
I just want to make sure that we do it. Right now that we do have the money. I think our employees deserve it.
But do they deserve
It's
it?
a one-time thing. I mean, I think we need to, you know, reward them for being here. Because districts are hurting to fill positions. They're still not 100% full.
I think we all believe they deserve it. We truly believe that. We truly believe that. That's why we gave the raises. We gave a pretty significant raise this year. And we gave the stipend in August, and then now we're giving one in November for everybody this time in November. And we definitely, I don't want to close the door to looking at something. I just want to make sure that we're being fiscally responsible for so many of the things that we need to fix also, so. It's really, I mean, if y'all have a different recommendation.
Well, it seems like you have an idea of what we're gonna have to pay as far as facilities. I mean, you have something up here already, because your wheels are turning.
I do, but it's a big number, but I'm not sure exactly what big number it is, and that's why we're having the
Materials,
facilities.
labor, and things like that. It's-
And are you planning? That's reminded for that?
Really, the purpose of ESSER is to address learning loss. There's a 20% learning loss set aside that we are required to meet. So again, when you're deciding where to pay for each individual expense, you weigh what is the purpose and intent of the grant. Can we use it for something like that? If we could relate it to the effects of COVID-19 somehow. And again, you talked about how you can almost write a narrative for anything to maybe get it to apply there. But I'm planning to use ESSER costs more toward learning loss as much as I can and take out some of these costs for facilities out of the local budget.
So like the fence at the high school is costing how much?
About $105,500. No, that was taken out of local money. And maybe with the hopes of, if they give us some extra reimbursement for security expenditures, maybe we'll be able to do that. It's a lot easier to do that from local than to try to retract it after you draw it down from a grant. So everything pretty much that we do for safety, security that we could possibly get reimbursement for, we will take out of local funds with the hope that maybe we'll get reimbursed for some of it.
Based on what the administration has studied and know that we can afford at this time, I move that we approve the $500 retention stipend for all employees in November 2022 as recommended by administration. If there's a second. Motion made by Mr. Coupal, seconded by Mr. Garcia. Any further discussion?
I do understand what Mrs. Salas is talking about, and I understand that they deserve more, our staff. It's not that we don't want to give it to them. I think we're on the right track with what we've given them already this past year. We just don't know what's gonna happen, this upcoming year, unless Dr. Pitts can bring out ESER 4, 5, and 6.
I wish I could.
Let's call our legislators.
Yeah, but that's just my comment, Mr. President.
So there's nothing attached to this that says you'll get this $500 stipend in November if you work throughout the school year until June.
The board has the option of setting any type of parameters around that they wish.
So they can get the $500 and balance in December and we'll never spend money again. So-called retention.
Unless we recommend.
Unless we.
So unless you condition the retention stipend to stay in a period of time, in addition to having making already that you could, which is we need to, at that point, rescind the second, rescind the motion, re-motion with the conditions you all want to stipulate to.
Can I just make a motion to alter the first?
You can make a motion to amend the
Vote on
motion.
that?
Let's discuss where are we going with that?
If it says retention stipend, I think it should be used as a retention stipend, not as a gift. Just call it what it is. Unless we want to call it what it is. It's Christmas bonus. Because it's Christmas bonus.
All right, Ms. Ramos, are you looking at them being employed for a certain number of months during the school year in order to get this
Last year of
stipend?
school this year, June, third, fifth. Oh,
Is this paid in a lump sum?
Yes.
How are you getting it back?
Well, if somebody were to leave the district, their last paycheck is reconciled based on prorated where they are for that time period. So, but let me add that sometimes it's hard to collect that, especially if they're getting something, we can deduct it and they get less on their last paycheck. But if they're already getting nothing, it's sometimes hard to collect on that.
How many people usually leave December?
20.
I mean, people leave in December. I don't.
Figures to make this for this at the time. No, I think it's December. It's clear. I don't recall that. Usually have it in the end of the year.
The other thing that you look at with the board is, I do recommend that some parameters be put, because do you give that bonus to the person that comes to the district on that date? But you don't give it to the person that comes a day later. I think that some type of date range or parameters would be appropriate. Legal, is there something that other districts have done in the past with something like this?
So generally, the retention stipends have been applied in retroactive employment. For example, everybody who started being employed this year or on a certain date. We've had one or two who have done post retention conditions. The only caution that I give districts with post retention conditions is that the reasons why employee leaves can be a lot of different reasons. And so you'd have to dice out every single possible exit scenario from every employee, right? And did they leave because they get sick and can no longer work? Did they leave because they were in an accident and couldn't come back to work? Did they leave because they retired, or did they leave because they went to another district? And whether you want to consider all different scenarios as opposed to having the question come back to you later. But generally speaking, it's usually free retention stipend stipulation. But you could add, if you'd like, post retention stipend stipulation or straights or clawbacks, what we can call them. So you could very well say they have to be employed through December and not quitting voluntarily or something.
So we have two options. We could put together parameters right now, or we could approve the resolution pending No?
No, I would not. I would not approve the retention stipend unless you're gonna do it with the parameters today. Otherwise, you'd be approving it already. And so if you do want some kind of, I mean, if the issue is whether they'll stay till a specific point, then you could add something to the effect of, without, resigning and leaving to another district, in which point you already have the power to do that with all your contracted employees, where you have to approve anyways if you're gonna let them out of the contract. And if not, they face sanctions. The only ones you have to consider would be your at-will employees at that point.
But then the question is, do they have to have been here at the beginning of the year to receive this retention stipend? Could something be done where they're required to be here a certain number of months in the year to?
Yes, and that has been common. For example, we last week had 2 different districts for retention stipends, and it was for all returning employees who are here today from last year. And
But didn't we do that in August?
We did that for teachers only. So the question is, if we approve this right now, that could be the stipulation that we're approving this for everybody who was here last year, but then again, basically what that means is nobody that's a new employee this year is going to get anything if you put that
Yeah, I
stipulation.
don't think I want that. I really want everybody.
I'm gonna call for the motion as it is right now. And I understand there's gonna be some, disparities but I don't want to create a nightmare, administrative nightmare out of this. There's a motion that's been made and seconded to approve the $500 retention stipend for all employees in November of 2022. We've asked for a roll call vote. Ms. Salinas.
Okay, I knew you were gonna get me first. Okay, well, before I vote. I vote yes for the 500, but I vote no because I want it to be higher than 500, so. I'm for the stipend, retention stipend, I vote no because I think it should be higher. So no.
Mr. Glucy. No. Ms. Ramos.
No Christmas bonuses.
Mr. Garcia.
Yes.
Mr. Chapa.
Yes.
Mr. Morales.
Yes.
Mr. Kufal votes yes. Motion carries 4-3. We move now to item 7J, discussion and possible action regarding legal service agreement for Special Education Department Legal Counsel. This can be found on page 128 to 131 of our packet. Dr. Pitts.
Thank you, Mr. Kufal. I'll present this because I was involved in the contract negotiations for this. We currently have O'Hanlon as our legal counsel. What is being brought here is specifically for special education legal counsel. The retainer fee would be $1,000 a year. What that retainer fee covers would be telephone consultation at any time that is needed for the 12-month period. What would be extra that has hourly rates built in is if we need written legal opinions, that would be extra. And again, you see the rates are in there as well. Want to point out that this is a 1-year contract that unless renewed by the board will terminate at the end of 1 year, and also that this is solely for special education legal counsel. We will take any questions that you have.
I have a question. What is the legal rate for O'Hanlon for their services? I believe I read something like 175 per hour.
It used to be 175, but now it is 225 per hour. We did reach out and try to negotiate rates with Welsh Gallegos. They would not negotiate their rates.
Okay, so O'Hanlon is actually roughly cheaper.
That is correct.
Welsh. Yes. Why would we use Welsh when we have an attorney who actually specializes in special education?
Many districts separate out different areas of the law for their representation. We do have O'Hanlon and a specialist with Nick himself is somewhat of a specialist, but we've got him spread pretty thin. Our special education needs are growing. And I think administration is just recommending at this time that we have separate legal counsel to be able to focus on this. Again, as a 1 year. I don't think it means that it's etched in stone. But this is what's been requested.
I would like to add that even though the hourly rates are cheaper for O'Hanlon, that the $1,000 would cover as much telephone consultation as we need, whereas if we needed that same consultation from O'Hanlon, we'd have to pay an hourly rate. We do not have basically a retainer for a flat fee with O'Hanlon.
I would like to just clarify that, if that's okay, Dr. Pitts, we don't charge for phone calls or emails. So if you look at, you review our line by line bills, you're not going to see a phone call bill on that, or should not.
And I want to be very clear that this is in no way a reflection of the quality of services that we've got out of O'Hanlon. I think we've been very pleased with the overall representation. It's just the caseload and what's growing, and I know that there are efforts in the O'Hanlon firm to even beef up the fact that there's some specialists coming on board
After December.
at the beginning of the year. But at this time, we just want to, I think, dip our toe into that pool where a specialized relationship kind of already exists.
So what we're talking about is Walsh, Gallegos, Trevino, they're only gonna target or be viewing the special education department.
They've been specialists for a long time. I know, we've dealt with them for many, many years. I know right now we don't have them, but we've dealt with Walsh Anderson for many years, and they do specialize in stuff.
For many years, Walsh was our primary attorney. But we had a separate special ed attorney that, and at one point we went to no across the board, we're going to have O'Hanlon handle everything. And over time, we've had to peel off like the bond issue pieces of it. And again, it's no reflection on O'Hanlon at all. But there are times when there can be some conflicting issues that we just want to make sure are looked at correctly.
Our population is growing in special ed. Just in the past 2 years, 61 more students, and then we have 64 waiting to be tested, if I'm not mistaken.
What's the population? Are we trying to do school?
Head Start, yeah. No, they're their own program.
Because we won't send anybody over there.
We don't send anyone over there. Any of our employees.
It's already within, but
Yeah.
not a.
They just lease. Clear, zoning from us.
So what is the percentage of sped ed students that we have right now? District wide?
Well, I can answer that from a numbers perspective. You're talking about what percentage out of the total? So we have approximately 480, I believe, special education students right now, and approximately, I believe, membership wise around 2650 total. So we're talking maybe around 8%.
You said they have 60 waiting. to get
64 potential that could qualify for their being tested.
It's great.
With your permission. Yes, yes.
Okay,
The only thing I will need to come in. Well, we opened up 2 units last year of the early childhood special education units from ages 3 and 3 years old. And we opened up 1 unit and then we ended up having to open up 2. There's quite a few.
So is that where they're coming from?
But that's not only, but that's already 2 units. That was a need here in Kingsville that wasn't being.
I just feel that number's huge.
Thank you for allowing me to say a few words. The only thing I did want to add about Walsh Gallegos firm, and nothing against the one we're currently using, is that we are looking at being proactive in training, which Walsh offers monthly 2 to 3 seminars of training. I have participated and trained my teams with those services that are free already added. Also, we do receive publication by them They're just in newsletters, the Law Dog newsletters, and all those are part of the free, monthly newsletters that we do receive, and we do use them as part of our training. One of our efforts in Kingsville ISD is to train our staff along the special ed team, all the way down to our paraprofessionals. And so one of the pieces that I did tell Dr. Fed is that WASH provides for all these additional pieces that are part of the yearly retainer that we will definitely utilize in our department.
All right, you've heard the recommendation from the administration.
Yes,
480.
Yes, you're right. You're right. I made a mistake. So,
Do not do that. While you're at a competitive.
You're just-
I know, right, what is it, around 17% or something? Yeah, sorry about that. Forgot to carry the one.
See, I remember many years ago, when we were beat up, when we were hovering around 10%. And the state was saying that we should have been around 3 or 4%. And we've always had very high numbers, and unfortunately, the good. I guess if there's good news about it, is the quality of our services that we're providing are apparently bringing students from some other districts that are not providing any kind of services at all. But we've heard the recommendation from the administration. Is there a motion to approve the legal service agreement? Motion made by Mr. Chapa, seconded by Ms. Salinas. Any further discussion?
Do we have a roll call vote, please?
Sure. All right. Mr. Morales,
Yes.
Mr. Chapa,
Yes.
Mr. Garcia,
Yes.
Ms. Ramos,
Yes.
Mr. Glusing,
I understand.
Ms. Salinas,
Yes.
and Mr. Kufal votes yes. Motion carries 6-0-1. Item 7K. Discussion and possible action regarding purchases over $25,000. This can be found on page 132 to 133 of our packet. Dr. Pitts.
Thank you, Mr. Goofball. I do want to mention before I go over this with the proposed changes in board policy with moving the threshold to 50,000, but basically taking away the authority of the superintendent to approve purchases that are on a purchasing co-op. That there probably will be more such items in the future that will be brought to the board because now board policy will be changing. So you will see probably more items in the future. For instance, if an air conditioner is over $50,000, that's an issue right there that we need to bring to the board, and we'll try to proactively bring those vendors that normally go over 50,000 in a year because of that next board meeting, so that whenever we are at a critical point and we need a purchase for infrastructure like that the board has already pre-approved that. Because now we can't just we wouldn't be able to just go to a purchasing co-op and take a major purchase like that is critical to do. So just want to bring that to the board's attention. But for this board meeting, we only have one purchase of 45,000 to school kit for again, you see leadership coaching, remote coaching, teacher training, and high school English for that will be out of ESSER funding.
All right, you've heard the recommendation. Are there any questions? If not, do we have a motion to approve? Motion made by Ms. Ramos. Seconded by Mr. Chapa. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Any opposition? Motion carries 7-0. Item 7L, discussion and possible action regarding additional diagnostician position. This can be found on page 134 to 138 of our packet. Dr. Holt.
It's the item we bring before you tonight again as the consider Approval of an additional diagnostician, we currently have 4, but based on the numbers that we just considered, we're asking for an additional 5th position. You see here the pay grade 3, 204-day contract, calendar, minimum, midpoint, and maximum. If you look at the attached items, you will also recognize on the first page, looking at the Texas Academic Performance Report trends, and numbers of sped students. You'll see again, this just shows justification of what we just discussed, starting in 2017, 2018. We were at 411 students. So we've significantly increased. You see a little bit of drop during the COVID period. But now you can see that we're back up to 480 and looking at actually possible 64 on the second page. If you look at current referrals, the possibility of 24 plus 40 initial evaluations, getting us up to 64. And if you take the caseload at the top of that page, being last year 73, this year 108. So that's a caseload, that's numbers, but that's not necessarily workload, because some of these students come with a lot of concern, and so we have caseload versus a workload as well. If you have any additional questions about this, we also have Ms. Zimmerman here.
What worries me are the large number of referrals, and I know, I mean, what are we doing to intervene in the regular?
I think that's why it's so important to get the training.
You know, for
Yes.
RTI, do we have a sound response intervention program?
Oh, no, we're still working on that. That's.
You know, the numbers are just super high.
We are, and we also have mandates from the state, talking from the CNI point, and we have CNI people here as well. But, you know, we are bringing in more and more on RTI 45 mandates, so I think that will improve. So I think there may be some closing of the gaps, but again, as Mr. Tupel, President Tupel mentioned, when you have accelerated services, a lot of times that does bring in people, so that's a good thing.
And changing the practices and procedures, so training the diags, training everybody actually before students are getting referred, because there have been kind of I guess the practice of, let's go ahead and just refer them, you know, and if they're not trained well, you know, that's the easy thing to try to do, but we really need to train them and intervene in the classrooms.
Right.
Respond to the intervention correctly, so it doesn't get to this point. This is really a ramification of some practices that maybe need to get tweaked.
Because really, that's where it starts, and if we're not intervening, well, of course, we're gonna have all these referrals. We're just September, we've got all these referrals. Can you imagine? February, we're gonna have half of our population.
We agree. Ms. Zimmerman, would you like to say something?
Thank you, President and board. I just wanted to add, you know, we definitely want to be fiscally responsible. We're constantly looking at why we are having so many referrals. We have a fabulous team who reviews the information for students, but honestly, we have several different factors that we are definitely looking at. For one, many students across our district are now returning after 2 full years of being at home. Now, that does not automatically mean that they're going to be in that referral process, but we have a lot of students coming back who were originally already in special education and are now back and receiving and needing services. We also have to take into consideration that COVID slide of our students. And with that, we're seeing not only just academic issues, we're seeing a huge uptick also of behavioral issues. Mental health is very, very important for our children. We're seeing a lot of difficulties with students who are truly needing our services. And so we are being very detail oriented when looking at those referrals and the reasons why, you know, how can we best service them. But we are having many students who are very warranted for those initial referrals.
Now, one of the things about bringing the behavior specialist last year is to try to intervene before it gets to a point where people think, you know, bad behavior means automatic special ed, you know. It's teaching them how to address those behaviors without it being a special ed issue.
And even with our LSSP intern, Tracy Stevens, she's also adding to the needs with behavior specialists as well as addressing those mental health issues prior to even that referral process.
And providing training.
Yes.
Well, my question is 108 caseload what we have today?
Yes, sir. That's
Okay,
accurate.
so if we add another diagnostician, it would probably bring us down to about 75.
Well, what we're looking at is, you know, with the referrals coming through. Again, like Ms. Leas had mentioned as well, this is just as of September. And so, our first, what I consider our first huge wave of possible referrals usually comes around the Thanksgiving type of area of time, because we do try to implement different, you know, strategies and things for our students, working with the teachers and training. But we do see more referrals coming through in the fall and then again in the spring as well.
So we're looking really at about 170 instead of. If we have 64 to 108.
Yes, sir. And
Okay.
this would be within just probably in the next month or so, that this number would already be that high.
Well, I was just trying to understand your
Yes, sir.
documents.
That's-
With the extra as far as speech services and things like that, how are we doing on that part with this, addressing those needs?
Well, I'm glad you asked. Because that is honestly what we're looking at very, very closely. Because not only does, you know, an additional diagnostician just fix that problem, you know, more students means needing more teachers or paraprofessionals, possibly another school bus. We're truly trying to look ahead and not be caught off guard at any point. Our speech language pathologists and assistants are also having higher caseloads as well. So that is truly something that we are needing to look at very, very soon. I did not bring the exact number, but I can say that usually our speech team, each of them have at least about 52 to 56 students on their caseloads as well.
They service them daily or twice a week?
It truly just, it's individualized, so it depends on the child and, but our whole speech team. It truly just depends. Sometimes students only need services one time a week, maybe 2 times a week. But we do have other students who require more than that due to their needs as well.
Do you all think this position will be filled quickly, or is there a shortage of diagnosticians as well as teachers?
Well, it has been really nice in our special education world where a lot of people have been reaching out due to you know, them seeing everything that is happening in Kingsville ISD. So before school started, we did have different people reaching out. I definitely can't promise or know how many would actually apply, but I do know of others who were actually wanting to come work for us because they see this progress we're making.
Yes, there's interest out there. Yeah.
Yes, sir. And we've even stated when building our teams that, you know, we definitely need very good, solid, you know, knowledgeable team members, you know, because we just have so many needs in our school district. Yes.
I was excited to get the special ed program moving, starting with the special education coordinator position being opened up. My concern in this area is that we're building so heavily up top, which is needed. I'm just kind of wondering how many sped paraprofessionals have been hired in the last 2 years.
Well, we're advertising, just to fill the ones that we have some vacancies. And unlike the diagnosticians or some of the other positions that we're seeing some interest, there's not enough interest in people applying for special ed teachers and paras. And so that we just had a meeting about trying to get as creative as possible to look at how can we incentivize people to apply or people to go into, maybe have to grow our own paras and special ed teachers, helping them get in alternative certification programs. But that's where there's a shortage. We have a
We have
shortage.
a serious need, and that was my main worry, as I stated in that meeting. If we're gonna be top heavy on this, we've got to build them at the bottom. I'm just not seeing it.
But I think this is really using based on the numbers. I mean, this is something that we have to do. If we don't take care of this and we want everything.
But within IEP becomes specialized. A lot of these teachers get tacked on like 15 million other things to do a day without the help of anyone else. That's a lot of study students in one class you ever about throughout the school district.
Well, and that's why I think it's very important. We're monitoring numbers very closely. We do have a need for more paraprofessionals, those full-time positions coming up as well. But we're getting new students moving into our district daily, literally, that have already been identified as students needing special ed services as well. So
We're also looking at our tutors and our subs, like we had an orientation, but last week or the week before, we had about 34 people come. And looking at them to see, are you interested in being a special ed aide or even as a special ed tutor? So to get some of the, there's not as much interest in that as we would hope, because it's a tough job.
and we're trying to help support them and train them, creating a community between them as well as us. We're working really hard to try to establish that.
Did several other conditions get thrown into special ed this year?
Yes, sir. Well,
That's true as well.
I was going to say, so in addition, another huge thing is now that dyslexia is considered a specific learning disability. In the past, dyslexia has always been associated with 504, okay, which is a general ed, support, where the student needed maybe more accommodations and things like that. However, now with dyslexia being identified as a specific learning disability in reading, specifically for dyslexia, those students are now also being referred for the special ed. So there's a lot of different factors, and it just truly depends on the student's needs though too.
Going along that line. I know you have to offer them a special ed referral, but it's up to the parent to decide whether they want to go 504 or special ed.
Correct.
Because you
Yes,
still have
ma'am.
to have a general ed program.
Correct. Yes, ma'am. And we do keep it as well. It just based on the data of the student and their needs. If they do need that referral to possibly have even more specially designed instruction, then we give that information to the parents and they decide, do they want to stay 504 or do they want the support through special education?
So currently, Dr. Perez, are we in need of paraprofessionals for special ed
Oh, no.
and for teachers? Okay, so what role does the DIAGs play in that part? Do they fill in a little bit where
And they
needed?
do the assessments to determine eligibility.
They diagnose.
Well,
And that's it?
Well, then they give a list of tasks for things that need to get done to help a student. My concern is that when they figure that out and they put in an IEP what they believe the child needs, it all gets tacked down. The responsibility of providing those services, the majority of them not provided by a professional like a speech therapist, get weighted down on a teacher in a classroom. That is my main concern, and what I would really like to see here is some specialized agreement of, we need these people in the classroom, whether the teacher has to stop and help the child for 20 minutes do something, well, there's an aide or somebody just making sure that the rest of the class is on assignment. Maybe those roles can be switched. If the teachers are drowning, there's just, the communication is lacking. And I'm only saying this because of experience. I mean, this has gone on for years. So I'm all for tacking, making sure we got everything it needed at the top, but there's no sense of doing this when no one can provide it down at the very bottom.
But legally, we have to provide.
And then
the
once you
assessment.
don't provide it, the district becomes responsible for not fulfilling a contract, a legal contract. I mean, you can get sued.
But usually our goal as educators is to start in the least restrictive environment. So most kids should be out in a mainstream setting. And then you go to the most restrictive if they need it. But the goal of a district is to start in the least restrictive. Correct.
And may I
And
clarify?
so that should
Correct.
at least meet their needs because they're gonna be just modified or accommodated, whatever you call it.
Well, may I clarify something as well? Last year, when Dr. Vestenize and myself came on board, we saw that historically, the past several years, our special ed teachers were the one running ARDS, prepping the paperwork, doing everything for our students, okay? And so when we came in last year, we stated that we want teachers teaching, okay?
So we took that off of their caseload, for sure,
Exactly.
their workload.
Teachers teaching, we've been implementing a lot of supports for the teachers as well as the parents. However, our diagnosticians are still a crucial part of our team because what they do is they evaluate students. They have that expertise of knowing exactly what our students need. And then it's their job also to educate the teachers, paras, but they're also the case managers of the student on those campuses. And what that means is, yes, special education, it feels like daily our laws change, you know, we must be up with the most recent laws every single day. And that is also the very important job of our diagnosticians is to, ensure that the students on their caseload are receiving these services. They help our teachers, they answer questions, they staff on them prior to even needing referrals, things like that as well. So it is a very crucial job that we have. They're constantly and they do the ARDS, they prep all the ARD paperwork. They're assuring that the paperwork reflects the law. Which if you have a teacher doing those things as in the past, there could be something that is missed. And of course, we are trying to
the instruction they're having to give.
Exactly. And so we totally agree though, as far as the paraprofessionals as well. And it also depends on caseload versus workload. Meaning more students in one class doesn't necessarily mean more paras. Less students in a class might need more paras because the students inside that class require extra help. And so, we are constantly watching to see those needs and ensure the safety and the education of all of our students and the adults.
Is there a different pay grade for the paraprofessionals as far as in the regular classroom, especially classroom? Is there a difference in pay for doing that?
Yes, sir. There is a difference, and I don't know if you wanted to mention, but there is a difference in pay grade between a paraprofessional in the general ed classroom versus a paraprofessional in a special ed classroom. They do get a type of stipend due to the nature.
And those teachers too. The teachers have a stipend.
Yes, and that's good. Thank you, Nicole.
All right, board. We've heard the recommendation for the hiring of an additional diagnostician. Is there a motion to that effect? Motion made by Ms. Salinas. Seconded by Mr. Morales. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. We move now to item number 8. The board will enter into closed session in accordance with Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code 551.071 and 551.074 to deliberate and consider the following. 8A, consider employment of contracted personnel, attendance compliance officer. 8B, consider employment of contracted personnel, behavior specialist. 8C, Discussions concerning economic development negotiations with Baton Bay Solar LLC. 8D, discussion with legal counsel regarding legal and personnel matters. 8E, discussion regarding superintendent evaluation status. No action will be taken until we return to open session. We are entering closed session at 7:11 p.m.
7-Eleven. Is that early? We're getting better. We're getting better. Like for my questions.
Let me go have my foot now. I'm sorry. Did this one else smoking about this? Like, oh my God. What are you doing? Oh, you have to tell me. No, but it's true. For everything that I went
We now return to open session and take necessary action on matters which the board may discuss in open session upon which action may be taken. We're returning to open session at 8:35 p.m. Item 9A, consider approval of employment of contracted personnel, attendance compliance officer.
Administration recommends that the Board of Trustees approve the contracted employee as presented in executive session.
All right, you've heard the recommendation of administration. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Ramos,
Second.
seconded by Ms. Salinas. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carries 7-0. 9B, consider approval of employment of contracted personnel, behavior specialist.
Administration recommends that the Board of Trustees approve the contracted employee as presented in executive session for behavior specialists.
Do I hear a motion to that effect? Motion made by Ms. Salinas,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Morales. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Any opposition? Motion carries 7-0. There being no further action before this board, I declare this meeting adjourned at 8:36 p.m.
Yes, sir. Thank you.